Depression. What is the first thought that comes to your head? Is it a person who is extremely sad in their lives? That they feel trapped in their own lives because they feel like there's no escape? Is there something wrong with them in their mental state of mind? What if we just talked about what is going on instead of letting fear manipulate our minds into thinking that we are going to get judged on what we think is reality? I know what you are thinking. I know what you are thinking. Easier said than done. It is time to knock over the barriers of doubt and insecurity. It is time to have a full conversation on the issue at hand. Let's talk about it. Welcome to Let's Talk About It. In this episode, we are going to dive in deep of what is depression, who can get affected by it, and try to be able to start the conversation of what are the facts and what is not on the mental illness we call depression. We are also going to be talking to this elderly couple who both suffer from a different type of depression. Let's start with the origin of the word depression. The origin of depression is Latin for deprimere, which means to press down. Later, the word became depresso, was used in Latin, while the English language developed the word depress. Later, depress changed in late Middle English, and eventually the words merged together to the word that we know today as depression. What is depression? Well, according to the National Institution of Health, it is a common but a serious mood disorder. It causes several symptoms that affect everyday life, from your thoughts to how you feel to how it affects you when you're doing basic activities. Depression can affect our lives in ways most of the general public may not realize the signs of depression. What may work for one person may not work for the next person. It is one of those things that say, walk into someone else's shoes to see the other person's perspective or experience. Let's do a quick recap of the different types of depression. There are 9 different types of depression that we know of. We'll also talk about suggestions of what you could do if you or a loved one is battling this type of depression. Bipolar disorder. If you're experiencing a moment of high, low, back to high, you might have bipolar disorder. Sometimes it is called maniac depressive disorder, on how it could be maniac to depressive. It affects 2 to 3% of the general population, but it is one of those ones that are the highest ones to commit suicide. Mood stabilizers are seen to be helpful if you suffer from this. Seasonal affective disorder, or extreme winter awareness. If you are one of those people that really get sad in cold weather and rather stay in your home, you're not alone. Up to 4 to 6% suffer from this. Light therapy or artificial light treatment is recommended. Major depression. This is the one that affects 7% of the population of adults in the US at any time in their lives. Symptoms of extreme sadness, hopelessness, lack of energy, and terrible trouble concentrating, change of sleep or eating habits, feeling guilt, physical pain, and thoughts of death or suicide are some of the symptoms. Best way to cope with this is with antidepressants. Situation depression, also called adjustment disorder, it is triggered by a stressful or life-changing event that affects so much. This is 3 times more common than major depression. Excessive sadness, worry, or nervousness, and if they don't go away, they might become warning signs of major depression. Adjustment disorder, just being there for that person in their time of need, why they're sad or why they feel lonely. Atypical depression. It is one that was not typically known to the psychology world. It's a sense of heaviness in the hands and legs. Talking therapy could help benefit this one. Psychotic depression. It is one of those ones you lose in touch with reality. This one is not typically associated with depression, and about 20% of people who see or hear something is depressed. So what is recommended is to take an antidepressant drug first, then take an antipsychotic drug for medication. Premenstrual acidophobic disorder. This is one only affects women, and only 5% of women, but it is much more serious. If you have anxiety, mood swings, and depression while pregnant, you might suffer from this disorder. It's a combination of depression, drugs, and as well as nutrition therapy could help benefit this. Postpartum depression happens to women as well, with characteristics by feeling of extreme sadness, fatigue, loneliness, hopelessness, suicide thoughts, fears about hurting the baby, and fears of disconnect from the child. It could occur anywhere from weeks to months at times. Suggestion is combined of talk and drug therapy. Dysthymia is a type of depression that causes a low mood over a long period of time, perhaps for a year or more. Symptoms include sadness, trouble concentrating, fatigue, and change in sleep and eating patterns. Suggestion is combined medication with talk therapy could help heal the process. Some of the symptoms of warning signs of depression are persistent sadness, anxiety, or feeling emptiness or making decisions, difficult sleeping, early morning awareness, or oversleeping. Gender also plays a factor in depression. In most cases, women with depression typically have some, if not all, of the symptoms of sadness, worthlessness, and guilt, while men will not open up and talk about the thing that is bothering them as an individual and find a way to cope with themselves, which could lead to disastrous results at times. Depression is more common among women than among men. Studies said that some of the contributing factors include biological life cycle, hormonal, and psychological factors that are unique to women may be linked to a higher depression rate. For example, women are more vulnerable to develop postpartum depression after giving birth, while hormonal and physical changes and the new responsibility of caring for a newborn baby can be overwhelming. Men often experience depression differently than women. While women are depressed are more likely to feel sadness, worthlessness, and extreme guilt, men are more likely to be very tired, irritable, loss of interest in once pleasurable activities, and have difficulty sleeping. Men may turn to alcohol or drugs when they are depressed. They are more likely to be frustrated, discouraged, faster anger, and sometimes abusive. Some men may throw themselves into work to avoid talking about their depression with their family or friends, or behave recklessness. And although women are more likely to attempt suicide, many more men die of suicide in the U.S., according to the National Department of Health. Age range also plays a factor through children to the elderly to any walk of life. Before puberty, boys and girls are equally likely to develop depression. A child with depression may pretend to be sick, refuse to go to school, or cling to a parent, worried that a parent may die, because normal behavior varies from one childhood stage to another. Teens with depression may also have other disorders, such as anxiety, eating disorders, or substance abuse. So pay attention to the signs if you see them eating less, or if there are more vital signs like cuts or bruises in their arms and legs. If your child or teenager is suffering from depression, here are some tips to help your child. Offer emotional support. Be understanding, patient, and encouragement through your child through their time. Talk to your child, not necessarily about depression, and listen carefully. They can tell you a lot if you just pay attention to them and listen to what they are saying, or in some cases, not saying. Never discount the feeling your child expresses, but point out reality and offer hope. Never ignore comments about suicide. if you hear this, maybe it's time to get your child some help by going to a counselor, a therapist, or a psychologist. Remind your child that with time and treatment, their depression will lift and they can enjoy life again. Speaking of age range, while out in the field, we talked to Mr. and Mrs. Johansky, who led me into their homes to interview them and talk about their experience through their lives, through living with mental disorder and the effects of depression. First, let's meet the wife. Besides standing by her husband's side through the tough times, she also had to battle her own struggles in life. Let's take a look.
My name is Lorraine Yohimczyk. The last name is spelled Joachimczyk, and I suffer from a chemical imbalance. Oh, I had a great childhood. I was blessed with wonderful parents. There was no depression in our family, and I had six children, and I played hard. I went to school. I did well in school. It was wonderful. So I went to work. I had no problems. So it was great. I met Tony, my husband, at the Eagles. I think 99% of the people met their husbands or wives at the Eagles. And for me, it was love at first sight, and for him too. So you hear about it, it does happen, and it did happen. It happened to Tony and I. It started after the birth of my first child. I was 28 years old, and I wanted a baby so bad. Now this goes back 58 years, and in those days they said you didn't want your children, and so you were more or less crucified, besides suffering from this terrible sleeping, that you couldn't sleep, you couldn't eat anything. So that's when it started. Doctor said I might have it and might change a life. You know, it definitely was a depression.
Okay.
And it just hit you hard. It hit you for no reason at all. You could be having a very good time and go home that same night, and just like that, you're sick. So it's just a reoccurring thing, and it's nothing from sadness. It could be happy one day, and you get the depression. The chemical imbalance kicks in. So but you have to work hard to stay well. I would say do as much as you possibly can before the baby is born. Eat well, really well. In other words, build yourself up, and because you are feeding your infant, and know a little bit more, really what's going to happen, that you don't sleep at night, and it's really a very demanding job that you always wanted, but it's different when you have it. So those are the things I would prepare. So, but if you do, no matter how you prepared you are, if you get postpartum, I would see a doctor, maybe a psychiatrist. They deal with that, and they can give you medication probably. I'm not in my changes anymore. I'm 83. I gotta have a break, don't you think? Yeah, I do, but it's not as bad as at first time. That's all I can say to somebody is just get help. I know the suffering is so severe. This is the truth. Now, believe me, it isn't like that. Now, the only way I could get this out of my system, the doctor decided it was through shock treatments. Now, you got to remember, I'm 83 years old, and what they did in my day was you laid on a bed, and the nuns carried big candles, and then they did not sedate you, nothing, and they put a pillow over your head to make you go to sleep, and then they did the treatment. And I was there for 2 weeks, and then I was okay. You're really lucky if you're born now than when I was. And I don't even know, they didn't even talk about postpartum. It was something that nobody had. I used to belong to a swimming club for the YWCA down on Jackson Street, which is now torn down. And we had a synchronized swimming club, and we had a lot of fun. And when you're with a group of people and you love something, and I love swimming, and we used to swim on 4th of July in the county parks and at country clubs. So that was my joy. And I used to like walking a lot. I would suggest a lot, if you can. I know you're very tired at this time, but at least walk. Start walking a couple blocks, and to get your body back to where it should be. Exercise if you can. It's hard, but you'll sleep better. And that you definitely have to get something for the sleep, because you go 3 or 4 months like I did without sleep. That is not good. So I'm sure they have something for that now. No, I did not know anybody that suffered from postpartum, and now through the years that I've experienced this, I have never run across anybody that had the same feelings that I have. And sometimes I don't even think it's of this world, because it's that bad.
So we just saw a rough case of postpartum depression affected after birth. There has been more research has been done since the time of shock therapy back in the 1960s when this was going on. Lucky for the women who do suffer from this disorder, there are alternative solutions to help people recover faster and live their lives. Some of the many symptoms of postpartum depression are weight gain or loss, insomnia, lack of concentration, crying, repeating going over thoughts, and panic attacks. Be aware if you know someone that you care about are acting in a certain way. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, this is reported more than 3 million cases every year. The age range that affects this the most is 19 to 40 years old. There's always a sign for something is not right. Here are the 6 stages of postpartum depression. Denial. Like most things, if people are in denial, they're more likely to lie to themselves. They might shake it off and say that they're not suffering from postpartum depression, but they are fine. Anger. Don't think as if they're likely to blow up on you or something that you did wrong. It's more like they feel like there's no one there for them. They feel empty and just build that self-anger. Bargaining. If she sees something like they could do differently, they say, no, I'll do something differently to change my lifestyle, it will go away. Depression. If not caught in this stage, this could lead to not making the right decision. You might think to say, there is no turning point after this. Acceptance. It is the ability to speak to your doctor and get to seek treatment that you need. Sometimes that is all the stages of postpartum depression, in most cases. But once in a while, that is not the case. PTSD is the constant worry that what if the PPD comes back and fear is going to drag you back. PTSD is the constant worry that what if the PPD comes back and fear is going to drag you back into. Speaking of PTSD, let's talk about what it is first. Like postpartum depression, there's over 3 million people reported in the US every year that are reported for PTSD. Age range for this disorder is 18 to beyond because there is not many solutions to this disorder. It sucks because it can get triggered from sexual assault to warfare. Symptoms of PTSD may include but not limited to nightmare or flashbacks, avoidance of situations that bring back the trauma event or the horrible event, heightened reactivity to simulate or a depressed mood. According to WebMD, PTSD can be caused by a person who is suffering from it that could lead to depression. Having both of them can lead to suicide. Now, let's talk to Anthony Johinski, a Korean War veteran who was suffering from PTSD all those years ago and still had to face it in everyday life for the rest of his days. Let's take an inside look at what it is like to live with PTSD.
Traumatic stress, which I acquired when I went into military service in Korea. And I've been living with it for 63 years. It started when I came back from Korea because it's always in September, October, November, December when we had Operation Commando. And that was the most strenuous time of my life at 21 years of age. In Korea, I lived in a 4x8 trailer with my records of the 77 field artillery, and I had 3 phosphorus grenades and my carbine. And the purpose of it was to live in the middle of the compound with a rock soldier in front of it to make sure that no army men or anybody would come around when I was in there, so that I wouldn't get excited and blow up the records. That was the main thing. I told you, Lawrence Welk is my number one. Yep. 60-some years Saturday night. That's it. My fishing programs, or Johnny Cash music, that when they sing their songs, they bring out what actually happens in life and makes you realize that they had troubles too, and they're trying to express themselves. So I think we all try that in one way or another. In other words, my dad come from Poland. He tried to evade Hitler, so he came to this country, and he married my mother, only had a third education. It was a German and a Polish person. So they went through life. They had a business, and there was friction, and he became drunk, drinking, and it made them separate apart. So my brother, he took care of my mother, and took care of her all through life. Even when she went into nursing home, he would go and visit her and the whole works. So it ruined his life by spending so much time, and he couldn't function as a normal person, I don't think. I couldn't go because I had children and a job, and I couldn't get out to Menominee Falls where she was a patient and that. Okay, the card on my left hand, I'm donating my body to Wisconsin Medical College because I played football for the Army, and I want them to realize that there might be some advantage to know what happens when your brain has post-traumatic stress or you're ruined from football. The right-hand card is my hips. I have 6 dislocated hips and 3 hip replacements and 2 stents in my heart. But the card shows that the hips are there and they're titanium, and when they operate on me, or they'll realize that I'm a bionic man part way. There are 3 wristbands. The blue one says that I'm a veteran, and that one is to let people know that if you're in trouble, you're going to take you to a veteran hospital. This one here is in case you have post-traumatic stress or medical deals. They will take you to a veterans hospital. This one here just came today. It's my ace in the hole. It lets me realize that if I get a heart attack or a stroke, I'm donating my body to Wisconsin Medical College and my brain, and it tells the type of blood type, post-traumatic stress, and my name, rank, and telephone number. So the medic unit doesn't have to perform CPR when you have this on.
More on depression out there and to talk about, but sadly I could not cover them all in this one episode. If you want more information on depression or PTSD, some great sources to go is the Mayo Clinic or WebMD has some great stuff to look at. But if you type on Google, and you might find some good information there. For Let's Talk About It, I'm your host, Michael Fischer, and I can't wait till we talk again.